This episode has been brought to you by our super generous supporters on Patreon. Bored yet? I hope so. When was the last time you were bored for an extended period of time? I mean bored like bored! No phone to look at, no computer, no podcast, no conversation. Nothing to turn to but the inner recesses of your exuberant mind palace. For a lot of people this might be hard to pinpoint, as studies show that Americans spend more than 10 hours a day in front of screens consuming media and entertainment. This might not be such a great thing. Good Stuff producers Matt Weber and Sam Grant explore the unbelievable benefits of being bored. This is an example of me being bored. So beneficial.
The modern concept of boredom dates back to the dawn of the Industrial Revolution. For the first time in history, massive numbers of the population were engaged in mundane tasks, like repetitive factory work, that isolated them from social interaction for extended periods of time. But we evolved under much different circumstances.
Our early ancestors kept their brains occupied by simply needing to survive, mapping out new areas, figuring out how to defend against predators, and discovering new technologies. We have an inherent instinct to want to keep the brain active in discovery. In other words, we as a species have evolved to be literally uncomfortable when we aren't using our minds in new ways. This is boredom. The most intense forms of boredom come when we feel isolated and trapped in a mundane task, such as repetitive factory work. This may explain why when we have a lack of stimulation, we gravitate towards anything that will resolve that need, even if it's not necessarily as productive as we'd like it to be. And with the advent of the smartphone and the internet, humans are spending more time in front of a screen consuming media and less time being bored than ever before.
However uncomfortable the state of boredom might be, it may also have benefits that we are missing out on more and more as our ability to distract ourselves increases. In a study on boredom at the University of Lancashire, a group of people were given a phone book and told to copy the entries onto a piece of paper for an extended period of time. Other groups did no activity, then both were asked to come up with as many uses for a pair of plastic cups as they could. In all cases, the group assigned to copy the phone book did much better than the group that did not. In other words, the group that was subjected to the boring task were much more creative.
So another study was conducted similar to the first, where one group did no activity before the cup exercise, one copied numbers out of a phone book, but a third group is added that simply read the phone book. They found that the group who simply read the phone book did even better than the group that copied the numbers. There have been many studies similar to this, all with similar outcomes, resulting in the conclusion that boring tasks, and most especially passively boring tasks, enhance creativity and thought.
So what is exactly going on here?
Basically, all of this says that our minds are in a more creative state when they're allowed to wander. Though not known until recently, daydreaming has actually become accepted as a major part of our cognitive processes. Ever think of something seemingly out of the blue? That's because as you daydream, the brain allows itself to access the default mode network. This network is most active during periods where the mind is awake and allowed to wander. And studies have shown that as well as being stimulated spontaneously during restful periods, it is also stimulated when reflecting on the past and future, thinking about oneself, and thinking about others. This state is also believed to promote more active pathways to your subconscious mind, and in general lets the brain explore and analyze the information contained within. Studies have also shown that those who let their brains linger in this state more often than others have a better working memory. That is, they're able to perform multiple tasks at once better than those who do not. These areas are different from those active during a sleep cycle and are most stimulated when you're awake and bored.
So this is why it seems like our best ideas come in the shower. We're accessing the default mode network. But this network isn't engaged when we're watching TV or on our phones or intentionally distracting ourselves with entertainment. While you might think that watching a YouTube video on your phone or scrolling through a news story, your mind could wander in the same way, but studies have shown that these activities, especially those where visual cues and plot have a relation, are far less likely to let your mind wander and access the default mode network. While we are becoming increasingly isolated in terms of human interactions, our isolated activities differ from those of an Industrial Revolution-era factory worker or someone sitting and reading a phone book.
Although the number of households with one person living alone has increased from 10% in 1950 to 27% today, this isolation isn't breeding as much boredom as it used to because of easy access to passive entertainment.
We gather with friends less, and we meet fewer people than we used to. We have generally replaced our need for interaction with a constant digital connection to the world. Not only does this constant stimulation keep us from exercising that creativity, it often traps us in echo chambers, where where we are only exposed to ideas and perspectives that we are familiar with and agree with.
That is, what is popular online and gets the most likes tends to become more popular overall, and results in us being constantly exposed to the same ideas and same people that are popular among our limited circles.
For thousands of years, boredom was a fixture of human life. Existence was dominated by long periods of boredom, but it forced us to think for ourselves and seek out new and novel ways of seeing the world.
And for a long time, we've seen boredom as something that needs to be vanquished, something that needs to be filled up with activity, no matter how inane.
But now that boredom can be eliminated by the swipe of a thumb or the click of a mouse, to truly enjoy the benefits of boredom, we might be forced to get creative and carve out some time to be bored, so that our mind is free to wander and think for itself.
So what do you think? Should we just throw away our phones and try to be more bored? Do you have any tips for ways to avoid the barrage of information in this crazy mixed up digital world? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And share this video with your limited circle of friends and online acquaintances so they have something with which to occupy their restless minds. Special thanks to our Patreon subscribers for making this episode possible. Without you Patreoners, this just wouldn't happen. So if you find this show stimulating, go to our Patreon page and support the show. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna go back to folding laundry. Actually, wait, where's my laundry?